Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's Drexel Alumni Career Services webinar, Positive Intelligence in Action, Practical Tools to Thrive in Your Career. My name is Kelly Lowerson, and I'm the Director of Alumni Career Services with Drexel's Alumni Engagement Team. But before I turn things over to our speakers, a few quick housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded. The recording will be sent to all registrants via email. It will also be posted on Dragon Network, which is Drexel's online professional development community for alumni and students. If you're not already a member of Dragon Network, we encourage you to join. I'll put the link here in the chat. Please use the chat as you already are to ask questions throughout the presentation. We really want this to be as interactive as possible. One last thing, at the end of this session, there will be a survey asking for your feedback and for your ideas for future alumni career services events. We want to make sure that we are providing programming and resources that are relevant to you and will support you in your professional journeys long after graduation. So please let us know what would be helpful. So now I am thrilled to introduce our speakers. Sherri Cohen is a leadership coach and organizational development consultant. She helps leaders to elevate their individual performance, build high-functioning teams, and expand organizational capability to achieve business goals. And she is a proud Drexel Dragon with a marketing degree from the LeBeau College of Business. We also have Farnia Fresnel. She is a leadership advisor and head of the Lensurf Group, a 2025 Inc. Power partner, a former leader at several Fortune 100 and boutique consulting firms. She works with global leaders on issues related to transformation and change. So with that, I'm going to let Sherri and Farnia take it from here and tell us more about what they're going to cover in today's session.
All right. Thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you to everyone who is here with us today. It is really great to be with everyone. And I just want to take in a moment to appreciate all those that took the time to write in the comments as you registered. Those were super helpful in us understanding who's showing up today. And we've got a big span. So I am going to jump right in. We do have a lot to cover. And I want to start with my positive intelligence story. So, like many of you, I'm a lifelong learner, always exploring new approaches. And I really felt like I was hearing about this positive intelligence thing like all the time, all the coaches I knew, all the OD professionals. So I was very curious. And then my own career shifted. I was an internal consultant. My company was acquired and my entire department eliminated. Seemed like a pretty good time to check out this positive intelligence thing. So I learned they focus on shifting from that negative to positive mindset. That was intriguing. It was app enabled and it really focused on building new habits. All right, so I signed up for the 7-week program. It offered me an abundance of content and tools and so much more. But the thing is in the first week, I already began noticing some shifts. So one, a board member that I work with who quite honestly kind of frustrates me, I found that instead of reacting, I caught myself, I took a deep breath, I stayed open, listened deeply to what she was sharing. And I was thinking clearly, I responded calmly, and she did not react in a defensive manner. This is a really different response. So, this relationship that consistently felt difficult suddenly had a lot more ease. Second, I noticed just a general feeling of sustained well being throughout my day. And I really credit this to the change in my morning routine. And I highly recommend this for everyone. So I do not start my day anymore with news or emails or texts, but with these 10-second, they're mindfulness like activities that we in positive intelligence called PQ reps. So PQ, kind of like EQ. And honestly, it kind of changed everything, changed how I felt, changed how I showed up. So these things made me go, something is going on here. It's different. It has immediate impact. And I already sensed that it had some staying power. So join the PQ community. I've been leading programs and workshops. And while today we're only scratching the surface, even this small introduction, like my first week, I think can be surprisingly powerful. So, our offer to you is that you can identify and interrupt your thought patterns. You can learn to reset under pressure, and you can move forward with greater emotional intelligence. So, at this point, you might be wondering what are the things we're personally facing? And so, here's what we heard from you. People are facing some pretty serious stuff, and please know you are not alone. There were three main themes. So, one, this was our absolute number one theme, was the imposter syndrome, self-doubt, overthinking, and that challenge of staying confident. And please know coaches hear this all the time from all different levels of leaders. The second was around career transitions, whether that was navigating significant challenges such as downsizing, uncertainty in the workplace, certainly the impact of AI, and then just figuring out like what's the next right step in my career. And then the third major theme was around leadership and team dynamics. So I think of that as both leading yourself as well as leading others, right? So we live in complex times. Again, that impact of AI. We do things like managing conflict, handling higher expectations, and just balancing all these different aspects of our lives. And I really particularly appreciated that comment about rebounding from failures, right? So important that we get comfortable with that. So, if you didn't share a challenge before, or maybe you're just considering a new one now, I do want you to take a moment to pause and think about what do I want to work on as I go through this time together for the next, 50 or so minutes. So I'm going to suggest before you do that, let's maybe just sit up tall, take a couple nice deep breaths. Kelly knows I love these. Really get in your body. Try to let go of any thoughts that you're bringing here from your last meeting, your last email, your last interaction. And so, what's one thing that you want to work on as you go through this time with us today? Just take a moment, maybe jot that down. And now, my last offer to you is just really be here, be fully present. We all know that everyone has a lot going on, but use this time to quiet your voice and that sense of doubt that may have led you here today. So, with that, I want to turn it over to my colleague, Farnia.
All right. So thanks, Sherry, and thank you, Kelly. Welcome, everyone. I'm Farnia Fresnel. I say Chronicles of Narnia with an F or California with an A. And I spend my time working with high-performing leaders. And what I've learned after 20 plus years is that capability is rarely ever the issue. What typically happens internally. When we're feeling any kind of pressure, and that pressure and how we perform in it is what determines how good we feel about each other and how good we feel about ourselves. From the themes that Sherry just reviewed, you're here today navigating your own uncertainty and probably some self-doubt, and you're curious enough to do something about it. Back in 2020, as a business owner, I decided to go through the positive intelligence program also. So our business was accelerating during the pandemic, but separation from my family was actually causing me emotional strain. I felt totally off. Now, then the Tokyo Olympics happened. Now, this was 2021. 2020 Olympics happened in 2021. And Simone Biles, you guys might have followed this story, the greatest of all time in gymnastics. She stepped up to that vault, and she's somebody whose body and mind are really trained to execute at a level that most of us can't even begin to comprehend. So in midair, she was going through that air and something went wrong. And it wasn't physical, it was mental. She later called it the twisties. And it was like a loss of some spatial awareness. Okay. And if you can imagine that the best in the world, the greatest in gymnastics in the world, she didn't trust her own mind. Now, I just encourage you to drop a one in the chat if you've ever experienced a time when you knew you were capable, but your head wasn't in the game. Drop a one in the chat if that's ever happened to you. Now I see some ones coming in so fast that I can't quite count exactly how many of them might have come in. When back in 2021, I didn't really first understand what happened and why she fully stepped down. I didn't understand it until I did. I actually connected this to what I was learning, what I was doing with positive intelligence. The real story wasn't that she struggled. It was that she recognized the struggle in real time. And she made a decision that most people, included to be honest, probably wouldn't make. Most of us would not step off of the mat. We keep on going. We keep on second guessing. We keep on pushing through while our performance, sometimes our relationships, and likely our wellness declines. Now, what I came to understand again through positive intelligence and the work that I've done since, and even some of the work I did before, I was able to connect those pieces, that moments like this are actually predictable. When you're under pressure, your brain defaults to patterns that it has always defaulted to. And these patterns likely sabotage you. So the good news is that neuroscience shows us that yes, you can rewire those patterns. You can train your mind to get grounded again. You can train your mind to respond instead of react and to perform at the level that you know you're capable of. Now, I had the privilege of going deep into this work. I was certified and then I became a firekeeper, or what this was mastery level faculty for positive intelligence. So I got to work directly with the founder, and I spent 18 months. Every week we got together and we had these conversations. And since then, I've delivered programs for leaders and executive leaders at HP, Forvis, Siemens, and many, many other firms, applying this work real time. And what I've seen across executives, teams, and even my own life, I think back to that distance and how I felt during the pandemic, is that when people increase their positive intelligence, also known as mental fitness, just like we talk EQ, there's a score. Positive intelligence is your positivity quotient. And when people increase their positive intelligence, many things begin to change. So now at this point, you're probably listening to this story and you're probably thinking, this sounds interesting, but is it real, Farnia? Is there actually science behind it? And I'm like, yes, there is science. What I appreciate most is that this work has been studied across very, very, very different environments, from world-class athletes, right, to Stanford students, to many other students, to hundreds of CEOs and their executive teams. And at the writing of the book, Positive Intelligence, there were over 500,000 people who had been studied, and that has been compiled into that book, that New York Times bestselling book, Positive Intelligence. Since that time, there have been many, many, many others, more than 50 countries. This work has been done. And you guys likely have also just done a survey or the assessment if some of you actually partook in that assessment. So, what is this? In this book, we learn about mental fitness, or your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive instead of a negative mindset. Now, conceptually, this feels so simple. It feels really simple to understand. Okay, be positive, positive. But it's not simple, because in reality, we've got decades, depending on how old you are, right? Decades or years and years and years of self-sabotaging habits that we actually have to rewrite in order to get past some of these things. So if I were to ask you, and maybe you guys can put a 2 in the chat if this happens for you, but it doesn't happen for me. Do you ever go to the gym and then walk out with a 6-pack? Put a 2 in the chat if that's happened to you. You went to the gym and you walked out with this, you were ripped, you had a 6-pack. Now, I'm a runner, so it doesn't work that way. At least it doesn't work that way for me. Like, I don't just buy a treadmill and magically I could do a marathon the next day. It doesn't work that way. No, you have to do the work. There is work required, and building positive intelligence means that you're doing the work to improve your performance, to improve your relationships, and to improve your wellness. So what's the work, Farnia? What's the work? Well, the research shows that there's only 10 patterns of self-sabotage that are the heart of many of our challenges. Only 10. 10 patterns of self-sabotage. You've got 10 fingers. Most of us have 10 fingers. There are 5 patterns of behavior that support any one of us in working through those patterns of self-sabotage. So this work, this body of work says that there are 10 patterns of self-sabotage. There are 5 patterns of behavior that can support us in getting past it. And there are only 3 muscles that we have to build. So when you go to the gym, you're probably working on, oh, I need the counter muscles, the back, the string, the abs. In mental fitness, there are 3 muscles that you're building. When you strengthen these muscles, you're better able to navigate and work through challenges more consistently and even more challenging circumstances. 10, 5, 3. I'll keep the numbers simple. Today, our focus is going to be on that 10. We're going to expose you to some of those patterns of self-sabotaging behavior, and we're going to focus on some of the muscles that you can begin to build. So you're going to learn some tools that'll support you with that. So let's talk about these patterns. Now, I'm going to go quickly here, but if you see anything or hear anything that may resonate with you or someone you know, you don't have to raise your hand. You can use reactions. I encourage that because I feed off of it. But all you have to do is blink. If there's something here that resonates, okay? So these patterns of thinking might generate some discomfort. This is what Sherri talked about earlier. And these saboteurs are basically our greatest strengths. So if you're really good at something, they're our greatest strengths overused. So what's funny is we all have all of these sabotaging behavior. We all have them, but we only see the ones that we use the most often. Okay. So basically, you're amazing at a lot of stuff. Okay. You're amazing. But sometimes you use your strength in ways that are not supportive. Okay. And sometimes it's not appropriate because it's being used in a way that may not be supportive. So I'm going to call out some of these habits or these saboteurs, these 10 patterns. And again, as I go through, can everyone just practice? We can blink. If you recognize something in yourself or in others, just blink. So this is why we want you on camera. So you blink so you can see it's not just you that might recognize this. You don't have to claim it, but I just want you to recognize it. So first up, we have avoidance. Okay. So the avoider. And this looks like in a business setting is you see that email from legal or compliance and you just don't open it. Okay, you just don't open it. I'm just going to blink my eyes because I know that this has happened to me. Okay, you see legal compliance, you're like, oh, I didn't do that assessment. I didn't do that thing. And now they're looking for me. That's avoidance. Okay. Next up is controller. Now that sounds like the person in the room that, oh, I'll do that and I'll do that too. Or that leader that might redo someone's work without trusting that it was done right the first time. Now, I also know sometimes that happens, right? Like that happens. So I'm just going to blink a couple times. Feel free to blink all as well. Or hyperachiever. Hyperachiever looks like this. You finish one project and before you can move on to the next, you just kept on moving on to the next. You didn't actually do it before you can. There's no celebration. You didn't acknowledge what just happened. You just keep on moving, or you won't do the thing unless there's public recognition. Like at the town hall, somebody names you. Hyperachiever likes that acknowledgement. Hyper rational. Now, this looks like that coworker that shares a concern about the viability of their jobs. They're really concerned about something happening to them. And then rather responding with, maybe some compassion, you respond with data and say, oh, yeah, I know there's unease about your job. Data shows that a lot of people are getting laid off. Like that may not be the response that that person might benefit most from. So hyper-rational, that's what it sounds like, or that's the tendency. Hypervigilance. So you come out of a meeting and you assume the meeting went badly before you got any feedback. So you don't even know that it's bad, but you're like, oh yeah, no one talked in that meeting. It must have been terrible. Oh no, it must have been bad. So hypervigilance feels that way. Pleaser. So pleaser, this tendency looks like you might be the person on the team who says yes. Anytime another department calls and asks for help, you say yes. Now, you could just blink, or maybe you can just cough and pretend that you didn't blink. If you recognize this in yourself or others, you say yes before you even assess your capability or your capacity. You said yes before. That's not okay. And you regret it the moment that call ends. Restless. Now, restless is one of my top saboteurs. It shows up. Now, I'm going to ask you guys this question and feel free to put the number in the chat. But how many tabs do you have open on your computer right now? Right now, how many tabs do you have open? I have no less than 5, okay, at any given point in time. So this oftentimes, if you've got a couple tabs open, it might mean that restless might be one of your top tabs too. Stickler. Now you see this just popped up on the screen and you're like, I'm not going to say anything because this is a presentation, but how many of you saw the typo in stickler? Okay, it's missing a C. So if you're laser focused on that and you're like, I can't even respect you anymore because I see that typo on this page, stickler might be one of your top saboteurs. Okay, if you notice that and you can't focus because you're focused on perfection, perfectionism sometimes shows up as stickler energy. Okay, and then lastly, we've got victim. So this might look like in a business setting that your project changes and your first thought is, of course, this would happen to me. Okay, it would happen to me. But saboteurs, what we know about them is these energies, they might generate some success, but they do not generate happiness. Okay, their greatest strengths overused. When we use our great strengths, it's great. But when we're overusing them, we might suffer. So I've introduced this cast of characters, and I'm going to pass it to Sherri to introduce their leader. Sherri?
Yes, thank you, Farnia. All right. I'm sure there'll be no surprise, right? The leader is the judge, and that is the saboteur we're going to focus on today. So we call the judge the master saboteur because all humans have the judge. And the reason is simple. We are wired for survival. The judge is rooted in our brain's threat detection center, the amygdala, and it drives that flight, fright, or freeze response, right? That's our automatic reaction. It's incredibly useful. It's completely kept us safe. It's how we survived and evolved as a species, right? So the judge is very important. The challenge is we often respond to psychological threats. Maybe we get an email from the CEO. Maybe HR has just called us, right? The same way we would have responded to physical danger. So even though we're not at risk, our brain, the judge, reacts as if we are. Now, I want us to see this, though, still as important information. It is a warning system, an alert. It is essentially saying, pay attention, something just triggered you, and you are moving into that automatic reaction, that fight, flight, or freeze response. So, from a positive intelligence perspective, it's helpful to understand how the judge shows up. So the judge is looking at what's wrong with 3: ourselves, others, and circumstances. So a few more things to know. It is actually the source of most of our negative emotions. Things like frustration and anger and disappointment, regret, guilt, doubt, shame, right? We could have a long, long list of what the judge does to us. And most of us have a go-to emotion. So my go-to emotion is frustration, whether it's frustration with myself, that other person on the line who is not helping me with my benefits question, or just the situation in general. But I do try to see it as a signal. I notice the frustration, and it is a clue that I might be in saboteur mode, and I now have an opportunity to pause. So I want you all to take a moment and think for yourself. Do you go to negative emotion, right? Think about that email you just got from your boss or the call from your colleague. Do you have a go-to negative emotion? Just take a moment. You can put it in the chat if you want, but most importantly, note that for yourself. And now I want to offer, yep, there we go. There's that frustration. Thank you, Farnia. That you might want to begin seeing this as a warning signal. that you are getting triggered and that you might want to take a pause, right? So that's our first tip and tool there, right? That emotion is a warning signal. Stop and pause. Okay. And then, by the way, this judge doesn't act alone. You already met the cast of characters. It actually activates our other saboteurs. So, who might join the judge? Could be the avoider, the hyperachiever, the controller, the pleaser. You might get one. You might get them all. So the judge really plays with us hard. So let's look a little closer at it from the different perspectives. Let's start with self. The judge often turns inward and it focuses on what is wrong with me. And it tends to replay those past mistakes and highlight those shortcomings. And it can make us feel really bad about our observations, whether they're accurate or not, that does not matter. So again, I want you to take a moment. Do you notice that voice in your head, that self-critic? And what is that critic saying to you? Start to begin to notice, right? This is part of positive intelligence, begins with noticing these patterns, these voices in our head. So I want to share a story to illustrate this. I worked with a coaching client through 2025, and by all indications, this engagement was going well. Both the client and the supervisor shared very positive feedback about the impact of the work. And yet, at the same time, payments were becoming increasingly delayed. And as the pattern continued, my first instinct was to question myself. Had I missed something? Were they dissatisfied with my work? Right? I was completely assuming the issue was on my end. And only later did I learn that the delays had nothing to do with the quality of the engagement, but the organization was experiencing significant cash flow challenges, right? So this is that perfect example of the imposter syndrome. Comes and goes, probably for most people at various times throughout our career, right? Maybe after a new promotion, a new assignment, a new project. It's alive and well and kicking. So let's look at the judge now from the other perspective. So this part of our judge focuses on what's wrong with you, what's wrong with others. And honestly, it leaves us feeling irritated and frustrated and disappointment, upset, right? It causes a lot of angst. And it quickly can move into that comparison, right? We might be thinking, I could have done that better, or maybe I'm placing myself above or below someone else. So again, I want you to take a moment to reflect. Can you think of a time you judged someone at work only later to realize you were missing some important context, or perhaps you underestimated, the value that they brought? And again, just take a moment, reflect, notice that. Notice what you might have missed when you underestimated that person. What wisdom didn't they bring because nobody was asking him or her? And then there is the judge of circumstances. And that judge insists the circumstances or outcome are bad, bad, bad. And they generally make us feel bad about those circumstances as well. Rather than saying, is there a gift here? Is there an opportunity? Is there something to learn from this situation? So, for example, maybe you didn't get the job you really wanted, only later to realize the job I got was much better. It was a better fit, had more career advancement. I ended up with an amazing boss. There were so many people here to learn from. Oh, maybe you were provided with more time to be with family and friends and community, right? So often we have to take a moment and pause. Again, that pause, right? We catch it, we pause, and we really look for that gift or opportunity. So you got a good sense of the cast of characters, good sense of the judge. We are going to test this out with a super duper fun exercise. that Farnie is going to walk us through.
All right. So you all heard about the saboteurs. Again, there are 10 and their team leader, uh, the judge who reliably passes the ball of sabotage for further destruction. And that sounds like a lot, but what does that look like in practice? So we want to make this somewhat real, right? So we're going to play a game. And this game is called What Does the Voice Say? So the voice is what we're calling the saboteurs, okay? It's a game called What Does the Voice Say? And I'm going to point out three very real situations that some or all of you may have encountered at some point in time. And after each situation, there's an invitation. We want to hear real time the voices that are coming back. So you don't have to speak into the space if you're apprehensive about doing that, but you can certainly type live in the chat so we can see what those voices, what popped into your head first. If you even think a fleeting negative thought, drop it in the chat. We want to see it because some of this is happening to us normally and we don't even notice. It's happening, we don't even notice. What is that self-talk? So, are you ready? Show of hands. Yeah, ready? Okay, reactions, hands. All right, I see some hands go up. Okay, so let's go. First up, this is the situation. This is an interview situation, okay? You are finally going to an interview. Your resume made it through the ATS system. You've practiced with AI, and you had the one-on-one with the recruiter via Zoom. So you're ready. Like you researched the company, and now you're going to meet the hiring manager. You made it to an in-person meeting with the hiring manager, Jane Wayne. Now you can't wait to get to that interview with her. And you walk into that live interview with Jane, and then you see this. What does the voice say? Just type in the chat what you might be feeling or what you're thinking. Again, you were planning to meet with Jane Wayne, and this is what you see, these faces, and they don't even look like they're smiling. So I'm curious, what does the voice say? I see yikes. Uh-oh. Why didn't they tell me? They weren't prepared for this. Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's 4 of them. Yes, yes. Remember to breathe. Okay. I'm not prepared. I'm not equipped. Okay. Yeah. All of this is real. All of this is real, and it may have happened to you even if it wasn't just an interview. What's up next? The leadership report. So, your team has been working on a report for senior leadership. You quickly reviewed their estimates, and in the report, you realize it actually shows that the program's over budget. So, you're not loving that it's showing that the program's over budget, but you're ready to do that presentation. You go in to show this report that you're already not so comfortable with to the CFO. And as you hand over the report, you notice a mistake in the estimate. What does the voice say? Just type your initial thoughts, your initial feelings. If there was a drop in your gut because this has happened to you, you're showing this to the CFO, not just anyone. And this is representing more than just you, it's representing the work that your team has put in. I see we need to reschedule. Uh-oh. They're going to notice that. I knew I would. I see this. I blew it. Nervous. I should have rewrite it again. Yeah, a lot of eyes, eyes, eyes. That sounds like judge of self. Yeah, yeah. That's what can happen. Let's jump to the next situation. This is the third one, and we're only going to look at 3. But you're the project lead, and you're sharing a critical update with your team. So you're in a position of power here. You're sharing a critical update with your team. You have a product that's going to market in 30 days, just 30 days. And this is a critical juncture. You're sharing the detailed closing shop run of show for the next 30 days. And you look away from your slides as you're all in the presentation. You look away from the slides and you look at your team and you see this. They're all looking at their mobile devices, and I don't even know if they caught anything that you said. What does the voice say? We're not ready. I knew no one respected me. Yeah, yeah. Might as well end the meeting. Yeah. Rude. I'm done. Just, yeah, all of this. What does the voice say? Waste of my time. Yes. Judge of others and even the circumstances. Should I stop now? Right? Like these are all the voices that may crop up. So, what we know is that these voices are very powerful, they're loud, and very rarely are these voices, in fact, accurate. So, they're texting each other about me. Yes. Like they're talking about me. Like I've been talking about the presentation and the 30-day countdown, and they're talking about me. Yes, but these voices are rarely accurate. Most of the time, they lie. So we talked about what the voice might be saying and how we really can't trust that voice. But what can you actually do in the moment? What can you do besides come to these erroneous conclusions that nothing you say matters? I'm going to pass it to Sherri to talk about what we might be able to do. Sherri?
Yes, all right. Thank you, Farnia. Right, so these are situations you may have experienced in the workplace. And if you haven't, I'm sure you've experienced something like that, right? Back to that saboteur being in the driver's seat. Maybe your fight, or freeze kicked in, certainly from some of those responses. I think that actually happened. So earlier, I told you about a circumstance with an improved relationship with a board member, as well as my increased well being. And at that time, I referenced a practice that helped me and I think it can help you too, right? And that is the practice we call PQ, positive intelligence, positive quotient, kind of like that EQ rep. And it consists of laser focusing on one or more of your senses to support you getting present and activating your executive functioning. So, this is really important. It's not just getting presence, that's the start, but it also begins activating your highest or higher level thinking. So, what we want to do now is really have you experience the power of that pause. And so, we're going to do some PQ reps. And a few of you here have already been exposed to them, but I'm going to start by asking you to sit up tall in your chair, really put your feet flat on the ground and really feel your feet. Perhaps feel your seat in the chair. If you like, you can either cast your eyes down a bit so you're not taking in as much information, or for those that like, I want to invite you to close them. And we're going to begin by taking 3 deep breaths. And now fall back into the natural rhythm of your breath, noticing the rising and falling of your chest or stomach. And you can begin by noticing the air as it enters and exits your nostrils. Really pay attention to that sensation. Chances are some thoughts are going to come. That's natural. Just try to let them go and refocus on the air coming in and out of your nostrils. Now I'm going to ask you to gently rub 2 fingertips against each other with such attention that you can feel the fingertip ridges on both fingers. And then shifting a little, begin gently rubbing all the fingertips of one hand against the fingertips in the palm of the other, and feel all those sensations of touch. The lines, the wrinkles, the hardness, the softness. And now bring your attention to the sounds around you and try to notice the sounds from as far away as possible. And now bring your attention to the sounds closest to you. That could even be the sound of your own breathing. And then once again, fall back to the rhythm of your natural breath, noticing the rising and falling of your chest or stomach. And when you're ready, come back into the Zoom room. So, how are we feeling? A little more grounded, a little calmer, a little clearer thinking? Feel free to put that in the chat. But what we're going to do now is we are going to look at those same scenarios. And now we're going to look at what can we do? Right now we have some of our executive level thinking. We have access to that. So what can we do now? So Farnia, can we go to that first scenario? Right. So you got past all the hurdles to get to this one-on-one interview with the hiring manager. And you walk in and you see this. Now, what's available to you in this calmer state? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What can you do? So please put some responses in the chat. We want to see what's happening now. I'm prepared. I can pivot. They look serious. That's a good sign. I was ready, one person or four. Yeah, so that's a really different response. Excellent. Yeah, this is great. Great. Thank you. So now, right, you've been working on that leadership report and you show it to the CFO. You hand over the report and you notice a mistake in the estimate. But you've just done PQ reps and you're in a calmer state. Now, what could you do? So simple. I can just let them know about the mistake and fix it, own it, explain it, acknowledge it. Yeah, it's not a career changer. I don't need to start my resume. Yeah. So we have some access, some different level thinking. And let's do that third scenario. So, critical juncture in the project. We're sharing that detailed plan for the last 30 days. You look at your team and you see this. Now, this time you actually take a few breaths and the fist maybe become a little more relaxed because we're in that relaxed state. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What could you do now? Stop speaking and acknowledge them. That's interesting. Get their attention. Yeah. So we have more access, right, to that higher level thinking after the pause. Get them to engage, pivot, ask what would be useful. These are great. So this isn't about finding the right answer, although I love all these answers, but it's really about experiencing how your perspective and your choices shift when you can quiet those saboteurs. So what we're really talking about here is self-regulation. So whether you do PQ reps, some people use that count to 10. I'm a big fan of the power of pause, where I like to take 3 breaths. I might walk around the block. I might have a bathroom break. I learned recently that some people like to slowly turn their water bottle and take a sip of their water to create a mindful moment. But what you're doing here is you are stopping and you are interrupting that saboteur. So to be clear, this isn't meditation. We don't need to light a candle, no chanting involved. These are practical, they're quick. Now, we just did a longer session, but a saboteur rep can be 10 seconds. I often do short 10-second ones in the morning. And you can do these anywhere, right? So you're in the meeting, you're in the Zoom room, especially, nobody can see that you're pushing your feet on the floor or you're rubbing your hands together. Your eyes are open. No one needs to know that you have begun self-regulating. So we're curious because there are a lot of different practices out there. PQ is just one. Who has a practice that they could share in the chat? And I particularly want to share these so other people can see, oh, that's something I've never tried sipping water. That might work great for me. I drink water all day anyhow. Stand up and walk around. Thank you, Dawn. Go outside. Thank you, Kelly. Anyone else have something? Self-regulation technique, even unconsciously, like I realize that I seem to take a lot of bathroom breaks on long, hard meetings. That's great for my self-regulation. Music. Oh, yes. Music puts us in a totally different state. Touch your hand, remind yourself of a happy moment. Yes. The brain thinks you're in that happy moment when you do that. Yeah. Some people call that savoring. They might look at their pictures and they savor. I think our positive intelligence people are big fans of the savoring. Nice. Safety plan with pictures. Great. So again, PQ reps are just one way of getting to self-regulation. But what I encourage you is to find the practice that is right for you. So we're going to do one last experience here. And we want you to take a moment to think about a situation. Maybe it's something coming up this week. Maybe it's the challenge that you came with today. Maybe it's something you've been thinking about for a while. But really get a sense of it. Try to visualize the specifics. Where are you? Who's there? What's happening? Excuse me. And most importantly, what's triggering you? What are those patterns? What's that judge saying? Really try to feel it from your head to toe. You might even want to get a little uncomfortable now. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to give a couple of minutes of silence and try to really visualize that situation. So hopefully we're feeling pretty uncomfortable now. So I'm going to say stop and pause and either take 3 breaths or focus on a bodily sensation for 10 seconds. Boy, 10 seconds can feel long. And now, with that calmer, clear-headed place, you can make a clear, focused, and thoughtful decision. Honestly, it's as simple as 1, 2, 3, just not as easy. So with that, let me turn it back to Farnia.
Okay, so if you're like me, you've gone to a lot of webinars, trainings. You could put a 3 in the chat if you do a lot of trainings. I know I have in all of my many years of existence. Yeah, I see it. But most change doesn't last because we're focused only on insight, like reading a book, listening to a podcast, going to the training, or just listening to the speaker. When you practice, you're kind of gaining insight and more insight, but you likely don't sustain it. So you forget it after about a week and change. So what we're positioning here in positive intelligence is that you have to build that muscle. As I talked about those three mental muscles that are required in order to sustain whatever change you're going for and rewrite those neural pathways. Because again, when we're under pressure, we default to what we already know, not to what's reality in the moment. That's what happens to us. We default to what we already know. So we need to rewrite that. And I encourage you to think about when that might have been true for you, when you're excited about something, or now that you see something. We talked about some situations you might see yourself differently because of some of the situations we discussed, but you don't necessarily intend to put any of the insights into practice. But with this work, this is not just theory, this is actual practice. This is actual practice. So the work that Sherri and I do is practice. It's actually a multi-week program that it's just about 7 to 8 weeks of repetition, like going to the gym almost daily and working out. So when you walk out after the 8 weeks, you might start to see that you have a 4-pack instead of a 6-pack, but you might see that something is changing. And that's what happens with mental fitness and with positive intelligence. So the 7 weeks of practice, what we've seen, and this is really exciting that we've seen this, because I know if I go back to before I started this firm, I used to work 19-hour days and I would never be done with work. It's not that nobody was calling me to do that, but that's just how I was. It was my muscle that said, oh, this is normal. This is what you do. I was in financial services. That's just how you operated. And the truth was that I was likely only effective for a portion of that time. I was putting in that time all the time. And I was likely only effective for a portion of it, not the 19 hours that I was physically in the building. I thought I was focused. If you asked me, I'd be like, yeah, it was a 19-hour day, 17-hour day, long days. And talking about it in that lens as if I actually got a lot done. But in reality, when you play it back, there's only a portion of time that you can actually focus. Your body will stop and your performance will suffer. So I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert, but I do know is that working with this over time, what we've seen with 7 weeks, people have reported greater well-being, increased performance, and significantly strong relationships. And I'll share just some of these statistics with you. Like 91% reported managing stress better. 92% are better at teamwork and collaboration, and 97% improve empathy. Not sympathy, like, oh, I know the such and such is not feeling so well, but this is seeing things from people's perspectives that you might have overlooked in the past. Like you're about to launch a product or you're about to put out a communication, but you forgot a stakeholder. When you practice empathy, you're able to better assess who your real stakeholders are and perhaps see hidden stakeholders. So that's the application of this work is noticing things that you might not have noticed otherwise. And that tends to be where the real power is. So the teamwork and collaboration, not that people are magically having like fantastic conversations and everyone is handing off seamlessly, but just the fact that people consider what their colleagues are going through, that alone changes a dynamic. So we've seen this happen in the span of 7 weeks. So I want you guys to think about, we've covered some stuff in the time that we've been together. It's been about 54 minutes. Okay. Sherri introduced a tool and a 3-step process, right? So I invite you to think back to the goal that either you set when you were registering for the program, you said you were experiencing a challenge, or the goal that you might have set when Sherri invited you to set one at the beginning of our time together. And just consider it for a moment. And what I know after having done this work again in many different places is that people tend to be 500% more likely to achieve their goals when they do so, or they're pursuing them with good company. So I invite you to be good company for each other, right? I think that's what we've been for each other, like chatting and sharing our shared experiences in this time. So I'll ask you this, as a result of what you heard today or what you might be experiencing, what will you do or try to do differently? What the smallest thing? You came here with a reason, for a reason. You came to maybe get something, pick up a nugget of information, or to try something. And we shared a couple tools. I wonder what you will do or try to do differently as a result. I want to assure you that you're not alone in hearing the voices. We all have them. We dim the voice. That is what the word positive intelligence, that's what we do. We dim the voices. They don't actually go away permanently. They just get dimmed a little bit. And then we're able to navigate because we're not hearing the noise. Saboteurs lie. And the responsibility is to get ourselves to a state that we can discern our own truth, right? Like, is my team ignoring me? Or are they really just looking at their mobile devices because they're following along with me and they're following the plan just on their mobile device, right? So there might be another truth. And this supports us in getting to that other truth. So Sherri invites you to visualize what might be different for you, like visualize just a moment ago. And I'd love to hear, drop that in the chat or raise your virtual hand. And I invite one or two voices if you'd like to speak into the space, but I know that typically doesn't happen in these sessions, to just say, what is one small thing that you might consider differently as a result of what we covered today? So I see naming the saboteurs. I'm going to practice taking a pause when I'm anxious. That always works. I promise you that will work. Okay, and as we're rounding out our time together, continue to consider that and feel free to drop it in the chat if you don't want to. Write it down for yourself because this is where the change begins, is acknowledging that you can change. You can change. We both shared stories about that earlier. You can, in fact, experience something different. So we've been together for 57 minutes now, and Drexel alumni, welcome you to feed forward and provide your insights on what this experience has been like for you. We'll drop this link in the chat as well, but I encourage you to grab your phone and just scan the QR code. It's literally will take less than 10 seconds to do this assessment, just a few questions there, but certainly would appreciate that feed forward. Is not for Sherri and I, it's more so for Drexel alumni so they can continue to bring you really robust and amazing programming in the future. So we welcome you to do that. And I know that link is going to be in the chat in just a moment. So make sure you get that link. And lastly, I just want to say thank you. Thank you guys for showing up today en masse. We had a really strong registration for this and was really excited to be here with you. Thank you for dedicating this time, whether it's your lunch break or otherwise, to spending some time with Sherri and I. We have some programs starting at the end of Q2. Love to engage you should you be interested, but I'll pass it to Sherri to close this out.
Yeah. So I also want to thank everybody for showing up, engaging. And I really have one word 3 times: practice, practice, practice. Right? That insight versus practice to me is one of the most important things we can remember because it's easy to learn this stuff. It is really hard to be it, to do it, to have access it when we most need it. So if you pick one thing to practice and that helps improve something, that will make my day 50 times over. So thank you again for being here and participating. And thank you, Kelly, for inviting us.
Yes, I want to say thank you to Sherri and Farnia for this amazing session. I love the content. I hope all of our other attendees did as well. Again, this was recorded, so y'all get the recording after this. And as you'll see, if you clicked on the survey, hopefully you all did, Sherri and Farnia have graciously offered to do follow-up one-on-one debriefs if you took the positive intelligence assessment. So definitely take advantage of that amazing offer if you kind of want to talk through your individual saboteurs one-on-one with them. So thank you all, and we'll close there. Have a wonderful rest of your day.